All right, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown. I'm your host, Big Nick, and, first show since sports have come back. The MLB has started. We got our first weekend of play through, and I had a great show planned for today, but when I woke up this morning, here we go already, we have the Marlins, the Marlins coronavirus outbreak. And, we were hoping that we could get maybe 15 games deep, 20 games deep into this season. Hopefully, we thought without outbreaks and without having to deal with this, but we're seeing it right off the bat already. And, we're going to have to deal with it. I mean, it's terrible because I had a great show planned. I thought the weekend went great. I thought I still do. Listen, baseball did a good job as far as they have the cardboard cutouts, the fake fan noises, in the stadiums, and when you're watching on TV, you do have a sense. Listen, we all know that nobody's there, but you still do have a feel of a regular type of play. I found myself, and I watched a lot of baseball this weekend, ton of games, and I find myself watching, and by the fourth inning of these games, in the middle of the game, I kind of, I forget, I almost forget that there's no fans because I'm just enjoying it, and the guys are going about business as regular, and they do have the noises in the stadiums. You hear the PA announcer announcing, now batting, Aaron Judge, stuff like that. And it gives you a sense of a normalized game, I think. And I think the MLB did a good job as far as that goes. But as far as traveling goes, and, you had to be prepared for this because we see the other leagues and we see the NBA, and, it's just the bubble idea makes sense. It does, whether you like it or not. It makes sense. And here you have Major League Baseball traveling and flying guys all over the country, and it's bound to happen. And now what we see is it's kind of a snowball effect because even though just the Marlins had the outbreak, they played the Phillies, so now those players have to quarantine in Philadelphia for however long they decide that they want to do that. And now you see the game's canceled tonight against Baltimore because the Marlins were supposed to play them. And you see the Yankee game being canceled because they were supposed to play Philadelphia today in Philly, which now though all the Philadelphia players have to get tested because we don't know who was exposed to that during the series with Miami. And it's a snowball effect. Now if one guy is sick and he doesn't show signs yet, or doesn't his test doesn't come up negative yet, it's a whole difficult thing. And I think that comes with travel. At least with the NBA, they're all in the same spot, they're in the bubble, everyone's tested, and there's not much exposure. There's not much exposure to airports and security checks and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens, and I don't think this is necessarily going to affect the season to a degree that it would get canceled. I know a lot of people are nervous about that, and I am too, but I don't think that that's what's going to happen here. I think more what you're going to see is this is really going to kind of set a precedent for the NFL. And what I mean by that is the NFL seemed to be going about business where teams would maybe play in their home stadiums. Teams would be traveling. Some cities would have a certain percentage of fans. I know New York said that they wouldn't have any fans in the stadium, but some cities wanted to. But I think that you can't do that now, looking at this. I think the bubble mentality might make more sense. And I know there's less games in the NFL. You're only traveling 8 times, so it is a lot less exposure. But even with that, we see in baseball, it took us one weekend. It took us 1 weekend of travel, and we have an outbreak where a team is just, I think they said it was 8 guys were exposed. 8 guys have the virus now. So it doesn't take much, and I think the NFL might want to look into a bubble mentality. I know that's hard with football. I do know it is hard because you have the field conditions and weather and all these different things. Guys are hurt. Guys need medical treatment. All this different things. Football is kind of on its own when it comes to the game itself. I mean, basketball is quick. You get guys in and out of a court. You don't need whatever it is. You just pick a gym. Hoops are hoops. And we see the scheduling the way it is. Guys are going to be. There's a game at noon for the NBA, then there's a game at 2, then there's a game at 6, then there's a game at 9, and guys are just in and out of the gym, reusing it. It's going to be harder to do that in football, and, we all know the reasons why, but I think the bubble mentality makes sense. I really just think it does, because you're seeing in baseball, travel is not going to work right now. It's not going to work. Too many guys packed together, close together. I don't know, and even football, you look, baseball, you're not even that close to the other team at any time, really. Football, you look at just the offense and defensive line right there. You're, a couple feet apart and breathing in each other's face every play. So, stuff like that, it's not going to work to me. But hopefully the season doesn't get canceled, because I do want to get back to actual play, and I want to talk about this weekend. I thought it went great. I mentioned already the fake fans in the stadium, the noises that the stadiums were playing. Thought it was cool. And one thing I really loved, and, we'll talk about it for a second, the extra inning rule. The new extra inning rule, I thought was awesome. And maybe your team didn't benefit from it this weekend. But just as a fan, this is how you bring excitement, and this is the time to try it. In a 60-game season, all bets are off. It's kind of like, let's experiment. You want to play around with something like this new extra inning rule, where a guy starts at second base to open up the 10th inning. Go ahead, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. This is an unorthodox season, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world by any means. And I know a lot of guys aren't happy about it. You got guys like Mike Clevenger, and I'll read his tweet here. It says, "This new extra inning rule is the wackiest blank I've ever seen. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get a runner to second off the back end of a bullpen? Hashtag this isn't travel ball. Hashtag make them earn it." And I get what he's saying. Listen, here he is. You got a guy who's on a team with a good bullpen, and he's a pitcher himself, so he knows how hard he works to keep guys off the base pads. And he's saying, listen, you can't just be rewarded a guy at second base with no outs. And I do get what he's saying, because it's very tough to get a guy at second. I believe the number is, when you have a man in scoring position in extra innings with no out, your percentage of scoring was 60%. So you're going from 0 to 60 very quickly here, and I get why he's upset. It kind of, and listen, his team didn't benefit from the rule this weekend. Maybe had Cleveland won that game against Kansas City, I believe it was on Saturday, maybe they would have won that game, and he wouldn't have said this. Maybe, who knows, maybe he goes, this is a great rule, I love it. We don't know. And maybe a guy in Kansas City says this, but he didn't benefit from the rule, so it's a little biased. But I get what he's saying, and it's a hard argument to make against him as a player, as himself being a player, because he's right. This isn't travel ball. You have to earn it. I mean, this is professional baseball. But as a fan, just pure, fandom here, I loved it. I even watched the, on opening night, the Angels Athletics game, and it was so fun to watch. The Angels open up the inning with the man at second, obviously. They end up, the first batter, ground ball to first base. The guy whips it over to third, gets him in a rundown. He's out. Then they end up loading up the bases anyway. Oakland gets out of it, and then a walk-off grand slam in the bottom half to win the game. I mean, that's just like, you can't ask for anything more than that as a baseball fan, and it brings small ball back too. You saw a lot of teams bunting the guy over to third. It was just, it felt good. It felt like really, it was like baseball was back, and you're seeing all these different techniques and guys just trying to figure it out. I don't know, it brought a smile to my face. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. Who doesn't like more runs? And yeah, that's pretty much my take on extra innings. I like it. One critique I would make, and I saw some people talking about this, if they were to continue this in the future, maybe one out. Maybe start with one out. That would make a little bit more sense because, again, 60% scoring rate, that's kind of high. You do want to make teams earn it, and even with one out, maybe you'll see more guys intentionally walk the first batter to set up a double play, stuff like that. So it's something to play with. I would say probably if it was up to me, I would like to see the team start with one out, man at second. You're still at a great advantage, but you got one out. So that's my take on it. That's where I would go as far as this. But I enjoyed it. Seemed like a lot of guys did. Seemed like a lot of managers liked it. But you're feeling it out. You're feeling it out. It's all new. But that's baseball. And listen, to jump trains here. Who gave it to you? Who gave it to you this weekend? A winning weekend off the bat. Opening weekend, and just absolutely crushing it. We gave out opening day. We gave out the under in the Yankee game, and the game got rained out, and the game was under. Listen, it didn't look great, but it was under. So a lot of books, your bet won. A lot of books, your bet pushed. Nobody lost. That was our top play that day. Then on opening night, our top play was the Athletics, and as we mentioned before, they won on a walk-off grand slam, 7-3. Cashed that ticket nice and easily. And then the following day, our top play was Philadelphia. They won. We were up. Let me check. Actually, I want to make sure I get this right for you guys, just because this is important stuff. This is part of our show here where we're going to give you guys the picks, and you guys are going to make money. I promised it, So, yeah, 7-3 winner, Athletics, opening day. Next day, we're plus 8 units. Phillies with a top play, Braves with a second play, both winners. I believe the only game we lost, actually, on Saturday was the Diamondbacks for a small unit size. We also hit a 3-team parlay, which was the White Sox, the Royals plus 1.5, and Tampa Bay money line. And then yesterday, smaller day but still positive, won 2.5 units, and the top play was the Yankees, 3-2 victory. So, listen, get on board, get on board with the picks. We're gonna keep them coming. We're gonna keep winning. I told you this. And you're crazy not to be tailing this, because I'm just going to keep posting the results every day on my Instagram story. And then it'll be in a folder on Instagram. It'll say daily results, and you'll be able to click through and see how we did. So just follow it, and hopefully you guys get on board. And that's what's going to be that's what we're going to be doing as far as the picks go every day. It'll be on Instagram. But to jump gears here and jump sports really quick, there was a massive trade this weekend in the NFL that I want to talk about. Jamal Adams. Listen, we got a lot of Jet fans who watch this show. We just started, we're very, as you could tell, the show takes place in New York, and there's a lot of Jet fans who are freaking out about this, and we lost Jamal Adams. We had a top 15 player in the NFL. He's gone, whatever. Guys, the Jets won this trade. The Jets absolutely won this trade. Don't worry about Jamal Adams, okay? There's bigger and better things coming for the Jets. I promise. Here's why. You don't give up 2 first-round picks and a starter, not to mention. You don't give up 2 first-round picks and a starting safety and a third-round pick for a safety. You don't give that all up for a safety. You give that up for a quarterback. You give that up for a couple Pro Bowl offensive linemen. You give that up for a top 3 pass rusher, maybe. You don't give that up for a safety. You don't. And it's very simple because you look at the Jets. You look at the teams who won the past 10 years. There's 5 things that make an NFL team great, and there's 5 things that bring them to the promised land. It starts up top. You need management. You need good management, good guys running the team. It needs to be a good culture. Then it's a head coach. You need a good head coach. Then you need a capable quarterback. Doesn't have to be great. If he is, he is. But you need a very capable quarterback. You need an offensive line who's going to protect your quarterback and give your receivers time to run their routes. And you need a pass rush. You need a pass rush. That's more important than the secondary. And the Jets just got, like I said, 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a starter for Jamal Adams. Listen, Jamal Adams is great. I mean, he's a great talent, but he's a terrible locker room guy. Terrible. He's been hurt. And then when I look at Seattle, they don't have an offensive line or a great pass rush. Jadeveon Clowney, it looks like they're not going to be able to re-sign him. And Russell Wilson, part of what makes him so great is the fact that he's running for his life. This guy's running for his life every year. Seriously, he doesn't have time to sit back there and throw. And when I look at the NFC, if the Seahawks don't win the Super Bowl, or matter of fact, if they don't win the NFC this year and get to the Super Bowl, this is a fail. This is a trade. This is a bad trade. And especially Jamal Adams, I'm reading he's going to be on a rookie contract this year, so he hasn't even got paid yet. So if you're Seattle, you already made it to the divisional round last year. You're already a game short of going to the Super Bowl. So what did you make this trade for? To get to the Super Bowl. Let's face it, you're already at the divisional round. The next step is you're going to the Super Bowl. If they don't get there this year, this trade's a fail. It is. And I look at it very simply. You look at the quarterbacks in the NFC now that they're going to have to probably face in the playoffs. You look at Aaron Rodgers. You look at Drew Brees. You look at Tom Brady. You look at even Carson Wentz. You look at even a guy like Jimmy G. And do you think that these quarterbacks, you don't have a pass rush. So you could have great corners all you want. You could have Jamal Adams back there hitting the guy hard every few plays and chirping him and, But do you seriously think that if you give Drew Brees this nice pocket back there and, he has time to throw all game and you can't put pressure on the quarterback, that your secondary is really, do you really think nobody's going to be open? NFL receivers are too talented. This isn't high school. This isn't college. NFL receivers are too talented. They will get open if you give the opposing quarterback time. They will get open. You need a pass rush, and Seattle doesn't have that. I look at this trade. The Jets clearly won the trade. And now I could be completely wrong. Seattle might go ahead and win the Super Bowl this year. Then it's a success. But come on, Jamal Adams, and not to mention, Jamal Adams is a terrible locker room guy. He's a terrible locker room guy. He's always got something to say in the media. He's always got the off-field antics. And when I look at and I even have the tweets here. He's kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of fake. Kind of just like a little bit of a BSer, maybe. I'm reading tweets here, and these are his words, not mine. Through thick and thin, I'm here to stay. Hashtag president. And it's a picture of him, in the jet tunnel. Then another one. The culture has changed. I've been telling y'all, the Jets are different. This is just the beginning. Okay, another one. And then here's the one that really gets me. Jets safety, Jamal Adams. I'm here to stay. I don't run from any adversity. And then he goes on to, request a trade, talk about the head coach, saying he's not the guy. And we see this trend with him where what does he mean then? What is he serious about, and what is he just saying to say it? And it kind of reminds me, in a way, of one guy. And if I'm Seattle, maybe go sign him. If you're gonna bring in a guy like Jamal Adams for cheap, go get Antonio Brown. Go all in. If you're gonna do it, go all the way with it. If you're Seattle, because at least then, yeah, you're not really solidifying the offensive line or the pass rush, but you're bringing in stars for cheap. Do it all the way, and you're bringing in guys who are a little bit of a distraction, maybe not the best in the locker room. Do it all the way. Bring in AB. Go ahead, and then the second he opens his mouth and says the wrong thing to a reporter or about the head coach or about his quarterback, gone. Just move on. And that's the way I look at it for Seattle. And Seattle does have great management up top, and they do have a head coach, and they do have a great quarterback who kind of all suppress those antics, and they kind of don't let that happen in their locker room. So I do think Jamal Adams could change for the better. Even like you see these personalities around the league, like Odell Beckham. Yeah, if he went to Seattle, he probably wouldn't act the way he does and say the things he does. But instead, he went to Cleveland alongside with rookie head coach last year and Baker Mayfield, and you kind of fall into it. Kind of nothing changes, and you kind of get the idea and the culture that that's okay, and that's why they don't win. So, but I look at Seattle. I don't love the trade. I don't love the move. And I look at the Jets and I say, listen, you got to be realistic. Not that you don't go into a season trying to win, but the Jets are smart enough to know, okay, listen, we're the third best team in this division. We probably weren't going to beat out New England and Buffalo and win the division this year. It just probably wasn't going to happen. And you have to be realistic and say, let's go get 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick and a starting safety. We don't even need to replace that position that we gave up. Bringing in a guy right away from a great defense and a great system. So if I look at the Jets, absolutely won this trade. Not even close. And if you're a Jet fan complaining about this trade, I don't know how much you really understand the game. I really don't. I don't know how much you understand the process of the game. Yes, the Jets might be a little bit weaker this year. Of course, they lost a top 15 player. But my point is, what were the Jets doing this year? What did you have expectations of the Super Bowl for the Jets? Did you have playoff expectations for the Jets to go deep into the playoffs? Of course not. If you're a Jet fan right now, you're saying we're shooting for 500, and if we win a couple more games and get in, then we get in. That's great. That's awesome. But you're not going into the season saying playoffs or bust, Super Bowl or bust. That's not the team they have. You're being stupid at that point, because not to come at people, but I know a lot of fans like myself some years, we're overconfident about our teams. And it's just not really realistic, And you even look at the Vegas odds in the AFC East. The Jets are not close to they're plus 700 to win that division. It's not happening. Buffalo's loaded, and New England's got a good team and the best coach, we all know. And they just signed Cam Newton. So, listen, it's still a rebuild for the Jets. I know it's been kind of a rebuild for a couple years, but it still is. They're not a Super Bowl contender yet. And if you could get all that for a safety, you do it. You do it immediately, and that's what they did. You just got gold if you're the Jets. You got gold. Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick in 2022. Okay, yeah, thanks. Give me my first-round picks. Give me my starting safety right back. It's very simple to me. And listen, I don't necessarily think that Seattle's going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're always one of my picks to get deep because Russell Wilson is simply just unbelievable, and he just amazes me year in and year out. But they're not necessarily my pick to win the Super Bowl this year. They're not. And them getting Jamal Adams, they're not my pick to win the Super Bowl still, because that's not, when I looked at Seattle's weaknesses, I didn't think safety. Go get a safety. We need a safety. It's not what I looked at when I looked at Seattle, you know? When I looked at Seattle's weaknesses, I said, well, the offensive line's shaky. Russell Wilson's going to be running for his life again. And I said, where's the pass rush? You know, they're in the NFC, so I'm already looking ahead to the playoffs, and I'm saying, well, you know, when I look at Seattle, who do they have? Who's going to go harass Tom Brady? Who's going to go harass Aaron Rodgers? Who's going to go harass Drew Brees? And they haven't shored that up. They got me a safety. And I look at that and I say, okay, like, Jamal Adams is great, but that's not the weakness that we needed, like, at all. I don't see, you know, I don't see what that did. What did that? How much better did that make you? You didn't fill up your weaknesses. Every team has weaknesses, and that's, you know, that's like a team needing, you know, just for the opposite effect of what Seattle did. That's like a team having an amazing offensive line, and their weakness is safety or secondary, and they bring in 2 more offensive linemen, and you're like, okay, you got better there, but what about the weaknesses? You have to address those. You have to address weaknesses. Teams get caught up on big names. Jamal Adams, bang, you know, and you got guys, oh, Seattle's winning the Super Bowl. They got Jamal Adams, they're winning the Super Bowl. And it's just like, even you look at Arizona when they get DeAndre Hopkins, and people are like, Arizona's going to make the playoffs this year. They got DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, but just because it's a big name player, and just because these players are great, football is 11 men on the field on both sides. One superstar does not make or break the team. It doesn't, unless it's a tremendous quarterback talent. A tremendous quarterback talent can do that. Very rarely still. Not a safety. Not a safety. And look at the Jets the last few years. I mean, that'll tell you all you need to know. Listen, Jamal Adams is great, but was that defense so, like, ridiculously, you know, no. And they had a good secondary, but they didn't have a great pass rush. And when you don't have a good pass rush, it's just, the secondary can only run around and chase these receivers for so long. Receivers are too good, they're too fast, they're too athletic. It's that simple. And with all the pass interference rules now, you put a hand on a guy, it's a flag. Good luck without a pass rush. Seriously. So I think that Seattle didn't address their weaknesses. I think it's clear to say they didn't really address their weaknesses here. But hey, they got a big name guy who, for cheap, very cheap. But again, if it doesn't work out this year, how do you ask for that big contract? If Seattle makes a first-round exit this year, which would actually be a game worse mathematically than they did last year. Let's say they make a first-round exit in the playoffs. They lose to a real good team, but whatever. How are you Jamal Adams' agent now asking for a boatload of money? How are you going to do that? It's not going to work because your trade was a fail. Your trade was supposed to bring us... What this trade means for Seattle is we were a game away from going to the Super Bowl last year. This is supposed to propel us a game. This is supposed to propel us to get a little bit better to get us to the Super Bowl. And if that doesn't happen, it's a fail. So, we'll see what happens, and only time will tell. Really, only time will tell, but we'll hop back to baseball for a second. And the show's not going to be too long today. We're almost done. You know, we really just wanted to address sports being back, baseball being back, you know, and address this massive trade, who I think, surprisingly, and, you know, hey, the Jets usually lose these deals, let's be honest here. But it looks like they robbed Seattle. A very smart organization in Seattle looks like got robbed a little bit here. And that's very unorthodox for them. I think, really quick, before we do hop to this last baseball topic, there's a lot of rumors that San Francisco was about to land Jamal Adams. And Seattle, and then that makes a little bit more sense. And these reports have been denied by San Francisco, so we don't know exactly what's true yet. But if that is true, it makes a little more sense. Because if you are Seattle in that division, the last thing you do want to see is that star and Jamal Adams go to San Francisco and have to play them twice a year. As Russell Wilson, like I said, is running around for his life with no protection back there, and then you add Jamal Adams in your opponent's secondary, and that could have been a nightmare. That could have been a nightmare scenario for Seattle if the 49ers had landed him. So it makes a little more sense then. It does. But just from the Jets' eyes, in the opposite conference, and just as the team that's kind of still rebuilding, doesn't have any Super Bowl aspirations, the Jets won this trade, and it seems like they kind of robbed them a little bit. They got a lot. They got a lot for a safety. I'll say it a million times. It's a safety. Got a lot for a safety. I wouldn't have gave up that much. But, hey, good for them. And really quick thought back to baseball. We said on the previous show that we did that you were going to see a lot of baseball teams this year. You were going to see a lot of baseball teams that you didn't think were going to win a lot of games or weren't going to be tough. And here we are. Here we are now. Not to jump on top of anything, because it's still, it's a 60-game season. There's a long way to go. We've only played 3 or 4. But the Giants just beat the Dodgers 2 out of 4. The Orioles just beat the Red Sox 2 out of 3. And the Marlins just beat the Phillies 2 out of 3. What's going on here, And we said this. The Tigers beat the Reds 2 out of 3. There's interesting things happening. There's a lot of upsets. And how will this affect the standings? Again, only time will tell here. But listen, you can't afford, if you're, I'm not saying this will happen, but if you're the Dodgers or the Red Sox or whoever, and you can't just lose 7 in a row. In a 162-game season, you'll see a team that's, unbelievable like that and has a, loaded up lineup or whatever. You'll see them go cold. You'll see them lose 6 out of 7, 7 out of 8, stuff like that. You'll see that, and then they get back on track and get rolling. You can't really lose that many games in a row. Like, listen, and I look at the Dodgers. They go to Houston next. So you split with the Giants, and then you go to Houston. And I'm not saying this will happen, but then say you get swept, or say Houston beats you 2 out of 3. You're like really behind the 8 ball here in a very short season of baseball. You're going to see a lot of teams, and we talked about it. I said maybe the White Sox. I said maybe the Reds. We said maybe Texas, and even them, they lost 2 out of 3 this weekend, But we said you'd see a lot of these young teams kind of just sneak, in a sneaky way, just maybe a lot of upsets and being better than people thought and catching teams off guard where it'll be too late for the teams who are expected to be better to kind of catch their breath and reset. Might be too late, And it wasn't exactly the teams we thought. Again, we thought maybe Reds, White Sox, Rangers, Twins to a lesser degree. I know they're one of the favorites, but they're younger, Padres, It wasn't even the teams we expected necessarily. We're looking at teams like Baltimore, a bottom-of-the-line team. San Francisco, bottom team. The Marlins, these are teams that were not supposed to do anything in a 3,000-game season or a 5-game season. These teams were not. They don't have a lot of guys, but hey, everyone's in it. And the expanded playoffs now, 16 teams. Why not? Why not? And I believe you're gonna see. I don't know who it is, but you're gonna see one of those teams who was like a complete long shot. Like people would laugh at you for picking them to make the playoffs. You'll see one of them in there. I don't know if it'll be like Baltimore or San Francisco or maybe like Kansas City. I don't know, but I'm just saying you'll see one of them in there. One will sneak in. And they might get swept round 1, probably. But you'll see them in there. It's going to shake things up. I said it yesterday on my Instagram story. Gear up for one of the most competitive baseball seasons, standings-wise, you've ever seen in your life. This thing's going to go down to the last day. The last day, probably, in the standings. So, I think, but I think it's good. We got to hope baseball keeps rolling. We got to hope Corona doesn't get the best of it. And then we have to hope that the NBA bubble works. And hockey should be easy. It should be. I don't want to jinx it, but it should be easier. It's the playoffs already. Jumping right into it. It'll be quick, done, in a sense, A lot less games, a lot less travel, series type modes, So we hope all the leagues follow, but we hope baseball gets through this because we're already seeing a few days into the season. And look, we got 2 games postponed due to Corona. 2 games. And now what? We're already jamming in 60 games. What, we're going to start making up these games and playing double headers? I don't know what they're going to do. So, it's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of room for error. You can't quarantine for 2 weeks. Half the season's over in 2 weeks. So, we'll see what happens. But also, really quick before we wrap up, hope you guys enjoyed the interview that I did with both Michigan guys last week, Dan Villari and Gage Garcia. They're really looking forward to the season. If you haven't seen the interview, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's our last video, actually, that we've posted. And they just talk about their expectations for the season, Coach Harbaugh, walk us through kind of a week as like a Michigan Wolverine, the things they go through as far as workouts and class and team meetings, all that kind of stuff. So it's fun, and we talk about their recruiting process. Gage is a 2-sport athlete. He wrestles and he plays football at the Big Ten Division I level. So that's obviously ridiculously hard to do. And Dan was committed to a school, and then he switched. And it's a great interview. So check it out. It's quick. It's about 25 minutes. And if you haven't seen it, let me know what you think. And again, we're going to try to be more consistent now that sports are back. The show will be more often, and it won't be as long. It'll be quicker shows, kind of more jam-packed, kind of just covering the news of what's going on, and kind of reviewing like our weeks as far as our picks and like our sports betting information that we give out throughout the week. And then, of course, giving our takes on certain things like this Jamal Adams trade. Like, Jets won. I'm sorry. Seattle doesn't win the Super Bowl this year. Jets win the trade. I don't care. So, stuff like that. We'll be giving our takes on that kind of stuff. But it's going to be, again, more of a news podcast, more quicker shows. I know a lot of people don't want to sit through for an hour long of, me talking. I know everyone's busy. They don't want to do that. So we're going to adjust it where the show will be more often. You'll see it every other day probably. And it'll be a smaller dosage, And then on Instagram, we'll be connected with you guys throughout the day, every day, with our polls or just asking you guys questions, stuff like that. So it's a fun thing. It's new. We're getting the hang of it as I'm getting the hang of it myself. So we're looking forward to it. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and be safe out there.